A storm is here, and I'm finally ready to talk all about it. Folks, let's jump into the review of the new film, Twisters. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the new film Twisters, which is available in theaters right now. Now, anybody that knows me or has been around me this year, I've always been saying that Twisters was my most highly anticipated release of the film. And I mean, there's a lot of good films coming out this year, but I feel like I was like the only one that was kind of standing on that business. And I am also one who has said, when it comes down to some of my favorite films of all time, that the 1996 classic Twisters is amongst that. And I don't know anybody that sat around and agreed with me. You know, there's so many other good films in so many different years, but Twister absolutely has always been one of my favorite films. So I absolutely could not wait to see what this sequel was going to be all about. Let's clear the air and get to the order of business here. This one right here is a standalone sequel, which means there is no direct connection to the 1996 classic. There is like one, maybe two references to it, but other than that, and along with it being back in Oklahoma, there's no real connection. So when you see characters introduced and you hear names and last names and hear about people's backgrounds, don't even think that hard or too deep into anything. There is no connection. And in fact, one of the first references comes very early in the film with the mention of Dorothy. You see Dorothy, boom, you see the connection, but they ultimately made it very clear that this was the turning of the page of that technology and how Twister hunting has now advanced. So you don't have to worry about at all trying to figure out the Easter eggs or any of those sorts of different things. No, besides it being shot in Oklahoma, staying true to Oklahoma, possibly seeing some of the things that you may have seen previously before, there's no character connections or plot connections from the original film. So let's get back to work here. Now, in this now, we're going ahead into pretty much the current date. You have Kate, who's played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. Kate and her friends, first of all, Kate is a tornado chaser, and she also is a meteorologist, and she wants to figure out a way to dissolve or whatever. I think the word they used was dissolve, but she wanted to figure out how to ultimately, when a big storm or big tornado system is on the way, how to dissolve them to protect these small towns. So she is a true Oklahoman, and she wants to protect her people. But when one just assumingly normal day of chasing becomes much more than that, she loses some friends. She goes off into New York to kind of put that behind her. But they take a 5-year time jump. And in the 5 years, while she's working this job that she's by no means emotionally connected to, one of her former friends, Javi, played by Anthony Ramos, who, listen, first of all, I'm going to need y'all to put some respect on Anthony's name. Anthony has been having a phenomenal last few years, okay? I think there's a lot of folks that be giving praise to, like, I don't even want to name drop anybody, but I think there's a lot of attention to other actors in terms of how good of a year they're having, and nobody's yelling Anthony's name. My man has had Dumb Money. He's had Transformers. I mean, The Bad Guys. I mean, he's retros. He's really been cooking it up, and he comes back now into this film as Javi, who stayed in Oklahoma, took another job chasing tornadoes, but ultimately using new technology, which he says, like, hey, Kate, with this technology and with your instincts, I think we can do some good to these folks. Of course, that draws her back in. He has some other details that he left out, but nonetheless, it's back to tornado chasing, ultimately until they run into the very popular trending hobby in tornado chasing, and that's with Tyler and his crew. Tyler is played by the awesome Glen Powell. Tyler takes a more of a less of a scientific route, but more of a influencer slash personality, internet personality, famous YouTuber route, and going after it, making a big scene. He's super popular. He sells merch. He comes off as cocky. He is the man. He has fun while he does it. Some people see it as obnoxious, but he's efficient, you know? So, with that being said, he's the YouTuber of the tornado chasing world. He proclaims himself as the YouTuber tornado wranglers. So, nonetheless, it is all about who's going to get to which storm first and who's going to be able to, either proclaim they're getting it first, but ultimately, studying these tornadoes, chasing the right systems, getting the data, sometimes selling the data or using the data in order to protect and give the people of Oklahoma who's in Tornado Alley a fair chance of survival, because this is a historic year of tornadoes. Like, they're getting the worst of the worst, and when these systems are becoming more and more unpredictable and ultimately almost inconsistent for them to be able to track, these folks are doing the good work, the very dangerous work, in order to protect these folks. Now, forget all the plot stuff. Now, let's talk about the action here. The visuals looks amazing. You know they would. I seen it in IMAX. You want to see it in IMAX or Dolby or 4DX if you even had that opportunity. It looks good. You don't have to worry about that. The next thing is, you're getting some really good personalities in this. I mean, Daisy is Kate. There's a lot I could say about her, but I will say, like, you're intrigued. You're invested. You want to see what she's going to say, because if there's one thing about her, she knows how to make a clap back. Tyler, he has his ego. He's going to make sure that his ego, his machismo, is oozing. He is that man. He has the swagger. Javi is somebody who's just trying to find his way. Again, he has a little secret attached to him, so at times you see the glow in his eyes that he wants to do right. Other times you see him that, you see the conflict that's going on in him. He also, I think he has a little thing for Kate. I think Kate, who lost her boyfriend earlier in the film, which really got her removed from all of this, should be struggling with this, but isn't. But I'll just say that. But ultimately, her thrill of the hunt is what has her back out here and ultimately wanting to save these folks. This film, oddly enough, has more of a connection to the origins of Superman. If you watch Man of Steel and how the beginning of that film starts, and you watch how the beginning of this film starts, you may think that they're all happening together. I'll just say that. I will also say that Javi, Anthony's character, has more of a connection with his film Transformers than this film has with the original Twisters. So, like, I couldn't help but to think about, like, how this film definitely was telling story components that you've seen and related to before, all into this. So, with that being said, like, the film does not reinvent the wheel at all. The storm systems look cool. I would say the fire tornado looked maybe the most wonkiest of them all. I also thought that they should have closed the film with at least a double tornado system instead of just one big system, much like they did in the first one. If it's called Twisters, why not have two big? Show us something we've never seen before. We've seen the F5 in life. In fact, we've seen the F5 already in the film. So I'm not sure why they didn't play a little bit more into the title instead of just going down the same little, oh, here's a big storm, here's a couple of small ones, here's a skinny one, here's a fire one, here's the big one again, So, like, they by all means didn't try to, like, do anything more unique than they did in terms of, like, the storm developments from the first one. Now, the first one is definitely more natural disaster heavy. It's more about the action here. This one definitely is a more well-rounded story. Definitely tie more into the characters, the arcs with the characters, and the humanity in Oklahoma. It is really about that. But I'm going to tell you right now what I did not like about this film. I did not enjoy this sort of forced love angle between Tyler and Kate, Glen Powell's character and Daisy, and even Javi with Anthony, which is like a trio. First of all, Kate lost her boyfriend. The whole point of her leaving Oklahoma and grieving was because of that. you know, losing her friend, losing her boyfriend. She's obviously affected by it, but then they don't tap into it, or they do not really display that measure of either survivor's remorse or just a flat out grieving from that. But then Tyler comes in and he's like, you know, he's the man. She's like trying to hold her weight. They got this good banter at one another, which you like that. You like the bickering at one another, but he's so invested into her because he's like, she's really good, but I've never seen her before, right? And then it ultimately evolves into like this thing that you're like, oh, they might like each other here. They're 10 years apart in age. There's a lot of weirdness between that. And I'm not saying that people 10 years apart can't date, but like some of the things that happen, you like, that I don't know. It seems kind of it seems forced. And even the fact that Javi is the friend that kind of makes some passes at her, and then he kind of is like, yeah, I hope they work out. I could have did without all the love angle stuff. In fact, it would have been a lot better if they would have kept this friendly competition and bickering between the two. And you know, some things shift around in terms of who's on what team and whatnot, but like still at the very principle of this, Tyler and Kate should have always had that bickering dynamic with one another. They also had some folks like Sasha Lane. I love Sasha Lane as Lily in this film. I think she's such a good casting for them to not give her much. I was definitely a little bit disappointed about that. I really wanted a lot more from her. Even Tunde, who plays Dexter, like these folks got like 2 or 3 like lines, couple of moments, and you wanted more because like they showcased all these characters, but really didn't give you much to invest into them. They kind of were like, they were almost like bystanders when you were like, I'm pretty sure one of them are going to get got in that storm very soon. So I think they overcast in the terms of folks in this film and underutilized them. So the soundtrack, up and down the board, very good. They did a good job with the soundtrack of this film. And other than that, man, I think like the most impressive scene is the storm at night during the rodeo. That was phenomenal. That was worth the ticket admission for seeing this film. The storm at night was crazy. The issue with that is that for these folks to be these well-renowned, whatever you want to call, Oklahoma-renowned tornado chasers, right, or wranglers, I'm thoroughly confused how a storm crept up on them and they were not prepared. I'm like, what in the world? How did they let that happen? But that's the hero there. The credits gives you an update of what could be next. I would like to see them try to draw out another film with this. I do love the first one. This one wasn't that bad, but it definitely didn't blow me away. And I think they'll probably put it all together, kind of see how the numbers do for this, and see where they want to go with next, and get a little dicey. Take some chances with the next one, you know. Besides this, the updating of the visuals and giving a more well-fleshed story, I like to see them take some more chances with the tornadoes. I don't want to see them leave Oklahoma. I know there have been rumors that they wanted to do LA. Thank God they didn't. But like, I would like to see them take more chances with this story because I felt like they took and played a lot of things very safe with this one. So they nailed the visuals. It's a fun adventure, a good ride. They could have did more with Kate in terms of the survivors' guilt and just the grieving, because they made that a whole thing in the beginning. The whole Kate and Tyler thing, I just could have did without that becoming anything indicating that it was going to be romantic. And then Javi, who's like, friend, but maybe I like you, but also I lost my friends with you too. So like, are we trauma bonding? Like, I don't know. I could have did without that as well. I also will say this, in a very mild bit of a spoiler, the folks that Javi is working for, I wish they would have gave them a lot more, because I feel like there's a measure of surrealism in that storytelling that I think they're trying to draw awareness to, that could possibly be a thing affecting communities right now that may be new to a lot of folks viewing this film that probably want to be invested into understanding that. So I feel like there was a narrative there that they kind of tapped on that they didn't give enough, and I think that was possibly a missed opportunity that they could have gave just a little bit more about that. So, Twisters, Very solid film. I give it a B. I would definitely go check it out just for the visuals alone. I'm absolutely going to buy this once it gets to physical media, because the visuals is always, the visuals and the music alone is enough to say yes. Yes, and if you love the first one, you'll love this one. You would still appreciate the 1996 classic and also have love for this. So that's my review of Twisters. Jump in the comments. Let me know your thoughts about this one as you have checked it out by now. And stick around for more reviews and content here at Big Gold Belt Media very soon.